Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Um, as we were discussing in the last video, uh, yeah, we had just finished discussing the poisonous gases used in World War One. Uh, Moving on to more uh, of German not listening to the rules of war. Uh, they actually started distributing gas masks after they used gases. Later in the war, well, during the war, they had actually been using submarines. The German submarine, the Unterseeboot, or German U-boat, was not very effective earlier in the war. That was because they were doing restrictive, uh, they were using re- restricted submarine warfare, which was basically you sneak up on the guys, you sneak up on a ship, you pop up and say, "Ha ha! We outmaneuvered you! Get off your ship and we'll blow it up." And according to the rules of war, the people on that ship had to get off, uh, get on the lifeboats, paddle away, and then watch their ship get blown up. But any sane or thinking person would just shoot the submarine. They didn't have that much armor. So the Germans figured, well, since they're not going to listen to the rules of warfare, we're not either. So they started just firing upon the ships. This was called unrestricted submarine warfare. This so they just fired upon the ships. They didn't even poke their heads out. Um, this later in the war the Lusitania, which was an American, which was the RMS Lusitania was a ship heading for, I believe, some place in Wales. It was heading from America to Wales. Um, it had been warned that you are entering a waters which are currently filled. This was the Germans warning them. You're If you go into these waters, we won't find ourselves responsible for the sinking of this ship. So yeah, they didn't listen to that warning, which understandably so. We're Americans. We want to go where we want, whenever we want. We want to have the right to do so. We're Americans. We don't listen to anyone. America. Uh, Back to war. Um, so the Germans then saw this ship. They didn't know it was a passenger ship. I mean, even passenger ships could be carrying weapons or rations for war. So they sank the ship, which killed hundreds of, which killed dozens of Americans, and and people from Britain and France, and yeah. So America got a little pissed off about this. So we pretty much dialed up the phone to Germany. Not really. They said, okay, you will not attack ships. You are not to use unrestricted submarine warfare. You are only do that in your own territory if you wish, but not in international waters. So Germany was like, okay, we don't want to drag anybody else to try to fight us in the war, so they listened. Uh, they were good about it, and America at this time was a third-rate power. But we were amassing a large amount of money because we were selling guns and we were selling the bombs and bandages to both sides, and everybody knew that we were selling to both sides because in olden days, yeah, nobody would like somebody who sells to both sides. but they did so, and we didn't get in trouble for it. So again, at this time, Italy was still kind of neutral. But then Italy, seeing the writing on the wall, decided to join the Allies. And then all it did for the rest of the war was fight Austro-Hungary right roughly here. It just kept fighting the same battle over and over and over again. So it was called the Battle of Isonzono, and there were 12 total. So at this time, America was still neutral. We were selling everything to both sides. Then in 1916 was the Battle of Verdun. This was a massive battle that lasted pretty much a little over 2-3 years. So it was right along the border of. It was in France, a city town called Verdun. The general there was General Erich von Falkenhayn. Sorry if I butchered that name. What he said was, "We want to bleed France white," and that has two meanings. One, we want to make them bleed so much that they surrender, or we want to drain every last dang drop of blood from their cold dead bodies. Either way you see it, it is a horrific image in your head. So there was also another saying that is very popular from that battle. None shall pass. This was from I believe a German officer who was trying to told his men, none shall pass. This inspired Tolkien, the writer of The Lord of the Rings, because a lot of The Lord of the Rings was actually based off of World War I and whatnot, to use the "you shall not pass." So basically, it's the original version of Gandalf, who was German. I wonder if he had a long, bushy, gray beard. So Kitchener. So due to the Battle of Verdun, the French were being pretty much slaughtered. They were stressed. They had a lot of military stress on them. That area was just about to break. So Kitchener, who was a French officer at the time, he begged that the British start a battle elsewhere on the front to reduce stress on that area. That way, the Germans wouldn't just be fighting, say, here, they would also be fighting up here. And that battle was the battle, and that battle that would ensue, for that reason, was the Battle of the Somme. The Battle of the Somme was a very interesting battle. At first, it was the most horrific failure ever, but that was mostly due to the fact that it was a bunch of pretty much untrained soldiers, which were called pals brigades, which were basically you and your pals from, say, I don't know, the neighbor from like a little suburb in England. An entire town would basically, all the guys old enough to sign up, who hadn't signed up already, would sign up and they join a pals brigade. Friends fight beside each other, die beside each other. And they were fairly untrained. A lot of those people got slaughtered. But the Battle of the Somme, the first day wasn't what defined it. Well, it's what defined it in most people's ideas of history, but it wasn't the end of it. Battle of the Somme actually continued a lot longer. There was it also was one of the first battles in which tanks were actually used. So after the first day was atrocious because a lot of miscommunication. First, they were using normal artillery fire, not the creeping artillery fire as we discussed in a previous video. The normal artillery fire was just attacking for like, I don't know, an hour, and then an hour or 2 hours, and they believed nothing could survive that. So then they stopped and the guys marched all the way there. They then got mowed down by machine guns. Battle of the Somme was actually 2 separate points. A bunch of trenches and this one town. They split it into 2 groups. Powell's brigade would attack the trenches, and the other group would attack the town. The town had been taken over, so the commander said, kept saying that the Powell's brigade just keep attacking the German trenches. You'll take them out. That wasn't so. So a commander actually had the idea that let's reinforce the basically the pretty much taken over defensive town, and then we attack them from the side, making it pretty much 2 fronts. The guy who was really in charge said, "Oh, it's much too soon to change the plan. We'll just go with the old one." And he had 2 chances he had multiple chances to actually accept that idea. That was probably one of the worst decisions ever. That decision, him not making that decision to change the plan, led to thousands of unneeded deaths. So, after those thousands of unneeded deaths, they then the Battle of the Somme then continued. This time, instead of letting the higher-ups who were far away, didn't know what the heck was happening, letting them take command, you give the platoon and regiment officers full command on the situation at hand. So that worked a lot more efficiently. They managed to creeping artillery, which allowed men to get a lot closer, a lot faster. And they actually had 2 tanks. And this was the first time a tank was officially a British tank was actually officially used in combat. So, one tank broke down almost immediately in the middle of no man's land, but the other one made it all the way to the trenches, scared the crud out of the Germans. They were like, "What the heck is this? Why are my bullets doing anything?" And then basically, Germans down. That basically led to the capture of and victory at the Battle of the Somme, relieving the stress at Verdun that the French so desperately needed. Next, moving on to pretty much the only actual naval battle in World War I. It was the Battle of Jutland. Jutland is right up here. So the Germans had the idea that, hey, let's move up through here and attack all of the British Navy and pretty much cause a big distraction. But it didn't go so well for them. But it is a much disputed who actually won. I mean, the British, they actually maintained their objective of keeping the Germans out of their waters, but the Germans received a whole lot less casualties on pretty much any side, pretty much any way you look at it. So it is kind of pretty much anybody's opinion on who actually won. They didn't really want to risk losing the Royal Fleet unless it was absolutely necessary. That's why this was the only true naval battle